They're claiming that we made a deal with them. We never made a deal with them on neutrality until we talked to our membership. Our membership with AOT, AFSCME, CWA, and Teamsters was overwhelmingly no. We don't want a neutral stance. So we listened to you. The reason why this is circled and the reason why we are here right now is because all of you stood in solidarity and we're together. They have never seen a presence like this before. This has not been an easy fight. If they had the votes on number one, they would have ran it by now. They don't. And if they run it today, we will let them know, not acceptable. We still have chances that we can do this. Still call your senators. Text into them right now. You let them know that you are out here waiting. You want them to vote no on number one. And if you don't feel good about those substitutes, you tell them you don't even like those. This is you. We're a democracy. We listen to our people. We don't give in to pressure.
Okay, y'all, that's in Utah. And that's public service workers protesting to the GOP legislation because unions, okay? Here's the thing, I don't feel bad for them at all because you guys were all warned about this. And then even after the election, you are all happy. Daddy's back. And we kept saying to you guys, I guess you're going to have to learn the hard way. I guess you're just going to have to learn the hard way. It's not our lesson to learn. It's y'all's lessons to learn. And so here you guys are learning your lesson the hard way. And there is zero fucking sympathy for you because all of us who saw it coming screamed from the rooftops about Project 2025. And you all told us we were full of shit. Looks like we were not full of shit. And you guys are now in the shit.
I can't understand how any union member voted for Trump outside of voting for racism. Notice in that video, you don't see a black face nowhere in that crowd. Black people and minorities are being locked out of the blue-collar jobs. I believe it's going to be our downfall. A lot of people don't want to do blue-collar jobs. We need to motivate kids more to get into the trades, but the trades are full of racism, sexism, nepotism, and favoritism. We need to eliminate it in our unions. It's disgusting. It's time. You guys voted against your own money. You should have voted for your families. You voted for racism. Fuck around and find out.
Let the union busting games begin. This bill prohibits public employers from recognizing labor organizations for negotiating. This prohibits people from entering collective bargaining contracts.
Hey, what's up, everybody? How are you doing? I hope you're doing fine wherever you are. I hope you're having a great Sunday wherever you are. There's an important topic that we also need to talk about today. Contemporary things that are happening in the United States. Some people have heard some people calling it FAFO. But we're not trying to laugh each other, but we are trying to educate each other. However, it's always important to know that we will always have consequences of the choices that you make. Now, what do I mean by the consequences in regards to the choices that we make? Now, just recently, that's in February 2025, this year, the Utah legislature passed a bill that bans collective bargaining for public sector employees, including teachers, firefighters, and the police. This means that the labor unions will no longer be able to negotiate on behalf of these employees. Now, people will argue that first, the government is trying to cut extra costs. But what are the implications to these public workers? What are the implications? Because the government will reduce its expenditure by removing the body, which is true. But a question, what is the implication? What does this imply to the workers? Now, the following are a couple of implications that this has. One is lower wage and benefits. There is poor working conditions, weakening of worker protection, impact on public sectors, especially in Utah, growing income inequality, decline in union membership and political power, economic instability, suppression of worker voices. Yes. Now, why is this matter? Why is this matter in Utah specifically? I want us to watch this video. I'll be back. People are going to share their sentiments in regards to the choices that they made. Some people are regretting already. Some people are like, you still have some hope for this country because the government is trying to reshape 1, 2, 3. I want us to watch this video. I'll be back where we'll have a proper discussion in regards to this.
Basically, Utah's House of Representatives just shit all over their teachers, their firefighters, their police officers, their EMTs, probably like CPS workers, and all sorts of employees. Unfortunately, this is only the beginning. It'll soon be private sector, and it'll be many, many more states. It's all part of P2025, just like we said. Not to mention that 45 and Muscanazi here, they hate unions. They hate them.
I said after the election that we were going to see more and more of these cases. I didn't know it would happen this soon. But there's an element of people who voted for Donald Trump or supported Donald Trump or whose organization was in a position to endorse either candidate and then didn't. And now they're finding out. It is the f around and find out. That's what's happening right now. And firefighters and different public service job people in that sector are really finding out. I don't know what it is about firefighters. I certainly know what it is about cops who want to support somebody like Donald Trump because he wants to give them total immunity for gunning down innocent, unarmed citizens. But firefighters, that's real public service. That they're not granted power to harm citizens. They don't carry weapons. They don't feel like they're authority figures to run roughshod over constitutional rights. They are first responders. They oftentimes show themselves to be heroes. Rarely, that's the case with cops, in my view. But firefighters are different. So it bothers me and it makes me quizzical, to say the least, as to why they would withhold their endorsement as a union, as a group, as a collective from Kamala Harris, refusing to endorse this election. They endorsed Joe Biden in 2020, but why not Kamala Harris? Curious, you would think they would be smart enough, intellectual enough to noodle through what the outcome would be of supporting Donald Trump and a party that doesn't want to fund anything other than tax cuts for the super wealthy. Here's a headline from October 3rd from the New York Times. Firefighters Union declines to endorse a presidential candidate. The International Association of Firefighters was one of the first unions to endorse Joe Biden in 2020. In 2024, its board voted not to endorse at all. They took the tack of the Washington Post and the LA Times. We're just not going to make an endorsement, which is a tacit endorsement, is what it is. Smash cut to December 21st. New York Post, fire unions livid as funding for 9/11 health fund excluded from federal budget, funds in jeopardy.
So in the latest example of fuck around and find out, Utah firefighters watch as the Republican representatives take away their rights to collectively bargain. And it's not just for them, it's for police officers and teachers too. As of Thursday afternoon, HB 267, as written, would eliminate collective bargaining for public sector employees, including teachers, firefighters, and police officers. While it would not prevent public employees from joining or forming unions, it would prohibit government employers from recognizing a labor organization as a bargaining unit. And if they are allowed to not collectively bargain, then your union means absolutely nothing. This is once again getting what you vote for. Like, it's 2025. If you haven't figured out that the Republicans are against the working class and against unions and will do anything they can to destroy those things, you're a fucking idiot. If you're a union member voting Republican, knowing, you have to know they're trying to destroy your union and your job. It's like they think, oh, it'll never happen to me. Yes, it will. They don't give a fuck about you. Vote your wage.
The Utah state legislature just passed a bill getting rid of public unions. There is a lot to unpack here, but it just passed in the House, so it hasn't passed in the Senate. It hasn't been signed into law. But also, what you should know is Utah is like a political test tube for conservatives because it's so conservative. Like, pretty much supermajority are conservative representatives, that the Republicans take the most far right things and laws they can do and try and get them passed in states like Utah, where they can get passed, just to see how it goes and how it can gain traction. And so this one is really interesting. But also, what you should know is in Utah, because it's more conservative, you can still have unions, but they aren't as strong as they are in some other states. And there can be a lot of problems here in Utah. There's not a lot of good training in unions, and there's a lot of issues with personal representatives in unions and getting the representation that you need. And I've sued quite a few unions here in Utah with the lack of representation and leaving my clients high and dry. But so they're trying to abolish it completely. And there's, including teacher unions, and there's a lot of teachers, because the union is so bad, that they just opt out of the union and they get insurance. And because of that, then they don't have to deal with a union representative. They just have insurance, and they can get an attorney like me to represent them, which can be a lot better, especially with how crazy it is, understanding public employment law and your rights, your constitutional rights as a public employee. So that's one thing that the bill does, is it still requires them to get professional liability insurance. So as a practical matter, I can see how it can be more beneficial, because having an attorney could be way better than what a lot of people are dealing with the current union as is. But also, it's a First Amendment issue, because you're essentially abolishing their right to assemble, free speech, bargaining rights. So there's issues to unpack there as well. I don't think the law as it stands will be able to pass, but I think that also something has to be done with the unions. Again, I've been suing them all the time. It needs to be fixed. I don't know if abolishing them is the way to go, but there needs to be, they need to beef it up. They need better training with their unions. Representatives need to understand so many people get terminated or have issues where they don't have representation present. So there's a lot of Weingartner rights that get stepped on. So yeah, Utah's fun.
So the people I feel bad for are the people in the unions who did not vote for these legislators. Ohio, in 2011, we had Ohio Senate Bill 5. And this basically would have stripped all public workers of their right to unionize and eliminate all the unions. They had petitions go out, they signed them, it went for a vote in November, and that shit failed. Like it did not pass at all. Yeah, it was they called that at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and our polls closed at 7:30. But it blows my mind. And this was introduced under Republican legislature in Ohio. And I do not feel bad for union workers who are registered Republicans and vote Republicans, when time and time again, the Republican Party has showed they do not give a fuck about you. So all you folks in unions in Utah that are Democrats, or at least use your brain and are like, hey, these people aren't good, let me not vote for them. Let me vote for the Democrats. I feel bad for you. Anybody else, you fucked around and now you're finding out. It's hard to feel bad for you.
Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. I hope you are super fine. Now, the ban of collective bargaining has significantly impacted American workers, especially the Utah, where labor laws already lean in favor of employers. Collective bargaining is the process where workers, through union, negotiate with employers for better wages, benefits, and working conditions. When this right is restricted or banned, the balance of power shifts heavily towards employers. That's the first implication. Now, while I talked about the implications or things that are here to affect American workers, first is lower wages and benefits. Without the ability to collectively bargain, workers lose power to negotiate their wages. Unionized workers typically earn 10 to 20% more than non-unionized counterparts. A ban would lead to a stagnant decline in wages, especially in public sectors like education and healthcare. Benefits like healthcare, retirement plans, of leave, and paid leave could also be reduced, as there is collective force to demand for better packages. Second is poor working conditions. Unions often push for safe working environments. Without collective bargaining, employers have less incentive to maintain safety standards. This could lead to longer working hours, fewer breaks, unsafe conditions, especially in industries like construction, manufacturing, and public service. Another thing is weakening of worker protection. The protectionist policy of workers will be weakened. Now, job security becomes fragile because collective bargaining arrangements often include clauses that protect against unfair dismissal. Without it, employers can easily fire workers without cause, creating a culture of fear and compliance. The fourth thing is impact on public sector, especially in Utah. In Utah, many bans or restrictions on collective bargaining target public sector's employees, teachers, firefighters, and state workers. For example, teachers will struggle to advocate for smaller class sizes, better resources, or competitive pay, affecting both educators and students. The fifth thing that I also like to talk about is growing income inequality. Collective bargaining helps reduce the wealth gap by ensuring workers get a fair pay or a fair share of the profits because they worked for this and everyone knows. Now, what does this mean? A ban will accelerate income inequality as corporate profits rise while wages stagnate for the average workers. And this is true because the power has been put in the hand of the employers and not the employees, right? The collective bargaining gave power to the employees and not the employer because it lobbied for some changes that are not favorable for workers. The implication of this is that we have all powers to the employers. The sixth thing is decline in union membership and political power. Without collective bargaining, unions lose relevance, leading to decline in membership. This weakens workers' political influence as unions often advocate for policies like minimum wage increases, healthcare reforms, and labor rights. The seventh thing is economic instability. Reduced consumer spending. Lower wages mean people spend less, which can slow down local economies. Higher turnover rates. Poor working conditions and low paying leads to high employer turnover, which is constantly for business and disruptive services. Suppression of workers' voices. Collective bargaining isn't just about money, but about having a voice in the workplace. A ban silences workers, making it difficult to address issues like discrimination, harassment, and unethical business practices. Why is this matters in Utah specifically? Utah is a right-to-work state, meaning union power is already limited. A full ban on collective bargaining will further erode workers' rights. Utah's economy relies heavily on public sector workers, tech, and service industry, all of which will suffer from decreased workers' morale and talent drain. In conclusion, what I'll say about this is that a ban on collective bargaining is a tool to concentrate power and wealth at the top while leaving workers vulnerable. It's not just a labor issue. It affects the entire economy, democracy, and social fabric of America. These are presented Gintok Stories. I'm hoping you're fine, you're great, wherever you're watching us from. Until then, I'm going to be seeing you in my next video. Salute.